Hey. A few good reviews. This is a segment where I just run down my thoughts on albums that have come out as of late. Perhaps didn't really have a lot to say about them. Usually they're albums that I'm disappointed by, which is why I throw them in this bit, because, I'm just like, oh, this album really left me with nothing to say. So here I am going to talk about them here. First off, want to talk about this Jason Eady album. Boy, this left me nothing. Like, I swear to God, there was just... I don't know, man, this felt so bland. Like, this is like what country music would sound like to someone that doesn't enjoy country music to me. Like, I just did not understand how he went from last year's self-titled album, which is really good, by the way. Like, there were so many friggin' great tracks on there. Like, it was honestly such a well-written album. He focused on topics like religion, which was such an interesting perspective to come from. It was one of my favourite albums of last year, actually. It made it really high on my year-end list. And this is just another case of a Laurie McKenna album, in the sense that her last album was amazing, but then the one she dropped recently this year just left me with nothing at all. Really sad, to be honest, because Jason Eady is a really good and talented writer, but there were just no tunes here at all. The music sounded really bare bones, and Jason didn't really have a lot to say, so I don't really think this album really did much for me. Another release here that is very similar to that Jason Eady album, Amine, 1.5 is his latest effort. I guess this is mostly just a brief mixtape, whereas Good For You was more of a well fleshed out album. And Good For You was underrated, man. I don't care what people say. There were so many good bops on there. Seriously, Beach Boy, such a fun track. Spice Girl as well, so much fun on that album. And even a track like Wedding Crashers, which featured Offset, grew on me with more time. Mostly I think because I've started to enjoy Offset's verses. I think it's more because of the exposure and how much I hear of Offset these days. But that track was really good. There were so many good tracks, but this album has very little in the way of catchiness, barely any melodies, and I think that's what Amine does best. He had a hit with the song Caroline. I just feel like that's where he gets it right. Those kind of weird, odd, eccentric, poppy tracks, but actually has some decent lyrics in there too. Doesn't take himself too seriously, whereas this mixtape felt too serious, very bogged down in too much, bland moments that didn't really get me or feel like I had anything to take away. And even this year, he's released a song like Campfire with Injury Reserve, which again was like his debut album, which had that fun sensibility about it, but there's really nothing really here to take away. So yeah, I'm kind of disappointed with that. Next, I want to talk about Ross from Friends, one of the most textured and well thought out electronic albums I've heard all year. There's some really nice ideas on this, to be honest. Never really got around to reviewing it though, I don't know why, but I'm just basically going to say that this is actually a really good electronic album. Perhaps that was the issue. I think there was just very little to say, because I could hear a lot of great ideas, but just couldn't really put it into words. So go check it out if you haven't already. It's actually a really good electronic release. So I had a few people recommend the new Mom Jeans album. Seriously, man, this was some of the most stale emo music I've heard in a while. And that's not particularly a genre of music I've quite adjusted to. There are the occasional albums from artists like The World Is a Beautiful Place, The Hotelier. Artists like that seem to get it right with what they're doing. I guess Car Seat Headrest falls into that category somewhat too, with some of the lyrics he writes about, but again, he's just such a great songwriter, Will Toledo that is, whereas Mom Jeans just had nothing about them. The vocalist sounded like every other vocalist in Midwestern emo music that you will hear, and musically it was kind of just by the numbers. So I didn't really get anything from this, despite the fact that it seems to be getting a decent reception from that crowd, but nah, nothing from me. And finally, I want to talk about the EP from HMLTD, titled Hate Music Last Time Delete, which I guess is supposed to be a funny title because, you know, their band name is HMLTD. Random words strung together. But they actually produce some really cool gothic, new wave type stuff, which I was really interested in hearing because they've dropped quite a lot of singles over the past few years that have ended up being really good. And I think they've had a couple of EPs since then too. And this one was kind of cool, you know. I liked some of the ideas. I didn't really like the Soft Cell remix. I thought that sounded like an absolute mess. But the opening track, Pictures of You, I really liked. And a few tracks in the middle too were actually pretty solid. But for the most part, I would say they're actually quite creative, and there aren't many bands that you can compare to that are sounding like this in like in this modern era. I mean, sure, there were probably plenty of underground bands, but this band seems to have worked its way up, which is pretty interesting. I know a lot of people will have heard them because of Anthony Fantano. Most bands you've heard because of that man, to be honest. But other than that, I do see a decent reception towards these guys, which is cool because they are very creative and very interesting. So I would definitely check it out if you want something quite unique, but also quite catchy too. And that's it there, my thoughts on these latest releases that I probably don't really have much else to say on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any of your own thoughts on these releases, let me know. And yeah, tell me what I should review next and all that kind of stuff. Subscribe if you haven't. Have a good day.